On the morning of May 19th, 1780, the sun rose over New England as it always had. By noon, it had vanished, and the world went dark. Not the gray of a storm, not the shadow of an eclipse, a darkness so total that people could not see the food on their own tables. Birds fell silent and returned to their nests. Roosters crowed as if dawn had already come and gone. And across the colonies, thousands of people dropped to their knees, certain that the day of judgment had finally arrived. It wasn't an eclipse, it wasn't a storm, and for 228 years, no one could say what it truly was. This is New England's dark day, and the answer, when it finally came, was hidden inside the rings of a tree. It started as an ordinary spring morning, but in the days before, people had noticed something faintly wrong. The sun had been rising a strange, dull red, and the sky had taken on a sickly yellow tint. The air carried a faint smell of smoke. Most people thought little of it. Then, sometime between 10 and 11 in the morning on the 19th, the light began to fail. At Harvard College, observers marked the darkness rolling in around 10:30. It didn't arrive like a single cloud crossing the sun. It crept and thickened and deepened until late morning looked like late dusk. And it kept getting darker. By midday, the darkness was almost complete. People lit candles to eat their noon meal. They couldn't read a page of print without one. They couldn't even tell the time, because it was too dark to see the faces of their own clocks. Across the region, families sat in their homes at noon in the glow of candlelight, listening to a world that had gone wrong outside. Roosters crowed. Woodcocks whistled. In the town of Ipswich, frogs began their evening peeping at 2 in the afternoon. The animals were utterly convinced that night had fallen. A heavy, sooty smell hung in the air, and when rain finally came, the water ran streaked with black, full of burnt leaves and ash. People caught it and stared, baffled. Something, somewhere, was burning. But there was no fire in sight, and the darkness only deepened, which is when the real fear set in. To the people of 1780, only one explanation made sense. This was the end of the world. New England was a deeply religious society, and many knew the words of the Gospel of Matthew by heart. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. Now it seemed to be happening, right in front of them. Churches filled, people wept and prayed and confessed their sins. Some believed the trumpet of judgment would sound at any moment. It is hard today to truly imagine that dread, to watch the sun go out and genuinely believe you are living the final hours of human history. But not everyone panicked, and one man's response would be remembered for centuries. If this is pulling you in, take a second to subscribe, because what one man said in the middle of that darkness is the part of this story people never forget. Now, back to that endless afternoon. In Connecticut, the colony's governing council was in session when the darkness fell. As the chamber dimmed to black at midday, terrified members called for the meeting to be adjourned, certain the end had come, and that they should face it at home, with their families. But one member, a man named Abraham Davenport, refused to move. His words have echoed down the centuries. "I am against adjournment," he said. "The day of judgment is either approaching or it is not. If it is not, there is no cause for an adjournment. If it is, I choose to be found doing my duty." And so, by candlelight, in the middle of what many believed was the end of the world, Abraham Davenport called for candles to be brought and went back to work. The poet John Greenleaf Whittier would later immortalize him in verse. but even Davenport had no idea what was actually happening to the sky above him. As the day wore on, the darkness never truly lifted, and when real night came, it became something almost worse. That night, the moon was supposed to be nearly full. It should have flooded the countryside with silver light. Instead, there was nothing. People held a sheet of white paper inches from their faces and could not see it at all. One observer called it the deepest darkness he had ever known. And when the moon did briefly break through the gloom, it glowed a deep blood red. The blackness held until the middle of the next night, nearly a full day of unnatural dark, before, slowly, the ordinary world returned. The sun came back. But the question did not go away. What had just happened? For more than 2 centuries, no one could give a satisfying answer. People proposed everything. A solar eclipse. But the astronomy didn't fit. There was no eclipse that day, and an eclipse lasts minutes, not a day and a half. A passing comet. A strange alignment of the planets. Divine wrath. A mysterious vapor risen from the Earth itself. Later scientists suspected smoke or fog, but they had no way to prove where it had come from or why it had been so absolute. The dark day became a footnote, a genuinely documented, genuinely inexplicable event, filed away as one of history's loose ends. Until, in our own time, a team of scientists went looking in a very strange place. In 2008, researchers from the University of Missouri published a study built on an unlikely source of evidence. Tree rings. When a forest fire burns through an area but doesn't kill the trees, it leaves a scar in that year's growth ring, a permanent record, locked inside the wood, of exactly when a major fire swept through. The team examined ancient trees in what is now Algonquin Provincial Park, in Ontario, Canada. And in the rings, they found it. Clear evidence of enormous wildfires in the year 1780. The picture finally came together. Vast forest fires had been burning across the Canadian wilderness. An immense plume of thick smoke drifted south on the wind, and as it reached New England, it collided with heavy fog and a low ceiling of cloud. The smoke was pressed down and trapped near the ground, layered so densely it choked out the sun. The end of the world, it turned out, was a wildfire, hundreds of miles away, on a scale the colonists could never have imagined. And here's the part that should give you pause. This was never a one-time freak of history. It was smoke, the very same phenomenon, wildfire smoke turning day into an eerie, dim twilight, has happened within living memory. And in our own era of record-breaking fire seasons, skies have gone orange and brown over major cities more than once. In 1780, people had no satellites, no science, no way to know that the darkness swallowing their world was simply the breath of a distant forest burning. They could only look up and pray. We know better now, but there is still something deeply unsettling in it. The reminder that the sky we take completely for granted can, without warning, simply go out. So, was it the end of the world? No. It was something stranger, and in its own way, bigger. A fire so vast it darkened the sky 400 miles away and terrified an entire nation into believing that time itself had run out. Tell me in the comments, if you'd lived through that day, knowing nothing of what we know now, what would you have believed? And if you made it this far, subscribe to Strangely Explained. Because the most unsettling mysteries aren't the made-up ones. They're the ones that really happened. I'll see you in the next one.